The other side of the coin was too that over millions and millions of years the planet continues to get bigger, because as trees grow and they die, and the planet gets larger. It affects the way the planet spins. He got into great detail about
how does the planet get larger.
Well, you figure as trees grow. You ever go to a forest and see how thick the underling is, where all the leaves are?
Like the mass of the Earth.
The mass of the Earth literally gets bigger, and it actually what it does is there's also groups out there that say that, like as an example, remember the brontosaurus, real long lizard, long neck.
Yeah.
There are groups that will tell you now, because of the environment here, that animal could not live. Its heart could not push enough blood throughout its whole body because they were so big. If you look at the pterodactyl, you ever see that? Remember the pterodactyl, the bird that kind of flew? It was a skin like a lizard. He said in order for those to fly, you had to have the right environment. He goes, they didn't have legs where they could run and get up off the ground. They had like claws and the tips of their wings, and they had these real short legs. Like they were hanging on to something and would let go and either go into right off the bat, go into a glide, or in enough where they could flap their wings one time and get up high enough where they could now fly. In order to do that, you need low pressure. So he believed that the Earth had low pressure around it. He also believed that dinosaurs lived at the same time that man was here, and that they kind of coexisted together. And that over time, as the atmosphere changed, those animals could no longer adapt to it, and they ended up dying off. Which, again...
Well, the atmosphere definitely changed when the comet hit the Earth.
Completely.
It definitely blacked out the sky and stopped things from being able to live.
And was that part of that? I mean, they say, listen, when you go back and you start looking at some of these people that were in the Bible, how old they were, and you figure out that Moses was, 500 to 700 years old? And so when he brought that up, I thought, well, that's interesting. Yeah, okay, why do you think that is? And he goes, well, I don't think the sun was cooking everybody back then. So the radiation from the sun now is really what kind of, at the end of the day, does us in. And he said back then they didn't have that. So they lived these crazy long lives like that. I mean, he also believed that all of the gods that they talk about, Zeus and all of the others that follow under him, were real. And that we ourselves, just like the Bible says, if you're, God made us in his likeness. Okay, well, he said, if they made us in his likeness and he was a God, we strive to be gods too. And I said, I don't understand that. What do you mean by that? He goes, listen, we want to fly. We want to control the weather. We want to, swim underwater and be able to breathe. These are things that gods do. And we perfected those. We now, we can make it as cold as we want in the house. We can make it as hot as we want in the house. We control all the elements. So, you start kind of taking some of this into consideration, like, well, yeah, maybe. I mean, again, it's all part of the theory. People have this ideology of where we came from and what we're doing here and where we're going and the aliens. Is it all together? Is it all really about the Earth, keeping it healthy at the end of the day? And these beings, like I say, have always been here. Project Disclosure came out in 2012. They had 44 members.
Project Disclosure
came out, I want to say 2012. It was set up with 40 different members these were all real high military personnel. These were guys that work within the federal government for, different agencies, the NSA. And each one of these guys came out and told a little story.
This guy calls himself Stephen Greer. His name is Stephen Greer. He calls himself a UFOologist. Ufologist.
He's actually an emergency room doctor, is what he really is.
Oh, really?
He's an emergency room doctor, which makes the story even more so amazing because himself...
Get this guy in here.
And the great guy. And listen, hey, Lazar lives here too. Lazar lives in Coral Gables, Florida.
Does he really?
Yes, he does. He lives right here in Florida.
What?
He's an interesting dude.
Oh, yes. Super interesting.
Again, look at Element 115.
And that's another weird thing I want to talk. I don't want to interrupt, but before we get off this topic, the Bob Lazar shit is so weird. Going back to talking about the UFO that just hit in Brazil, how some of that stuff's disappearing off Twitter, disappearing off Reddit. I searched. Now, Bob Lazar did a podcast with Joe Rogan, which is one of Joe Rogan's biggest podcasts. He's got 11 million views. It's definitely top 10% of his podcast as far as popularity. If I go on YouTube and I search Joe Rogan, Bob, okay, it does pop up. So this
but you still got to look for it.
It's not shadow banned. Maybe that was just me. For some reason, they were trying to ban me. I've been looking at too much UFO shit. There's Danny, we're cutting you off.
You're zipped up.
All right. Anyways.
Stranger things happen.
What were we talking about?
Stranger things happen. No, but just
Yeah,
listen.
he lives here in Coral Gables.
Yeah, Coral Gables, Florida. I mean, again, when you look at element 115 that wasn't around and all of a sudden it's there, they went to Bob's house about a month ago. The FBI did. Why would they go there and do that? I mean, if this guy really wasn't what he said he was, who cares? So obviously something was going on. He obviously struck a nerve with somebody and what he was talking about with this element 115.
Why don't you think, I mean, when you watch his interview, all of his interviews and all of his podcasts, I mean, it's really fucking hard not to believe what he's talking about. Why would this guy be lying? I mean, he would have to have spent a lot of time fabricating these stories and all the details in them.
Well, I think, too, when people started to go back and kind of do an investigation, because, listen, nobody wants to take anybody at face value. You know, you're like, this is a pretty big story, and you're like, you're part of this? Really? You really worked at S2?
Right. S4.
But S2 is where the extraterrestrial vehicles were actually at. Okay. S2.
Oh, okay.
So he initially, when he came out, wanted just to share the information with everyone, and obviously, you know, the powers to be didn't want him to do that. So they discredited him, and they, I'm trying to think, I believe the reporter's name was Knapp. Daryl Knapp was the investigating reporter. So what he did was went back to the university and asked for his university records.
Oh yeah, because they wiped his university records.
They weren't there, and so what it did was it made people kind of like me go, oh well, see you there, Lazar, you weren't telling the truth to begin with. Now they can't find anything on you, and it's kind of, oh really, the government did all this, right? And like I say, when you go back now, all this time has gone on. He was discredited for so many things. Like I say, you go look at the periodic chart. Element 115 is now on there. He talked about that element. And whatever else he had done and had recorded, they obviously thought that he had more information there because they went to his house.
Right.
And Bob's not a troublemaker. He's not this guy has a PhD. He's a highly educated man who thought that the truth should come out about, hey, listen, the American public can't handle it. Well, I think they can, and I'm going to come out and let everybody know that wants to know what's going on. And I think when you take that into consideration, what he's done for UFOs across the board, help us better understand what we're seeing. Why they don't want to share this with us, whether we can handle it or not. Listen, I'm real far from that category. But when you talk to younger people today, especially the millennials,
why are you far from that category? Personally, why do you think you're far from that category?
I try to be the moderate. I try to be the guy in the middle.
Yeah.
I want to understand, again, why is it that some people think that religion is real? Or why is it you think UFOs are real? Or why did you think Kennedy was shot by this group? Or why did you think that...
Well, it's fun to dive into all these conspiracy theory wormholes on the internet. It's really fun, and it's really entertaining to do it. But if you're somebody who's really looking for the truth, or is not going to just tie yourself to some idea and try to tell everyone that you're right and they're wrong... If you really believe something, you should be, this is something we talked about with Nathan Kroc. Basically, if you think something's real, you should be always trying to go out there and prove it wrong. Find things that go against it.
Absolutely.
If you really want to believe something to be true, don't just look for things that are going to confirm your beliefs. Search for the things that are going to prove you wrong.
Sure. And listen, even when we talk about these things and what event in your life that happens or takes place, I'll give you another story. Live near the beach here. Again, dealing with night vision. We just got some new night vision in, and so I had never used it before, and I was getting ready to go over to SOCOM, so I wanted to know.
Where do you get this stuff from?
It just comes in from the manufacturers.
Okay.
There's a manufacturer that just does nothing but night vision.
Okay.
IR. So we go right to those guys. And those units are about $3,000. When you start buying them outright.
Okay.
So most people won't go out and buy them.
Right.
But as we put these special operations teams together and I get the equipment and bring it in just to kind of get to use it. So I went in the backyard and I'm laying on my deck and I'm playing with it. And there's a thing that they talked about even with the inventor called flaring. And so I'm laying in the back and I'm doing this. Well, out of the east come these two balls of light. And I'm looking, I pull the night vision away from my eyes. I'm looking at the night vision. I go, I wonder if that's a flare, if that's called a flare. Or what's going on. So I put them back up in my face real quick again, and these two balls of light that had come out of the east are still there. I have two real tall palm trees on the side of my house. They're probably 60 feet high, and these lights went around those trees. I instantly jumped up and knew I was looking at something. Without the night vision on, you couldn't see them.
Yeah.
So, what does it take to prove something like that to yourself? I didn't run out and grab the newspaper and go, oh my God, I saw these balls of light, and you're not going to believe this. These events were not a personal matter, but I think if you share them with some people, they're looking at you like, uh-oh. I think one of the cuckoos got out of the loony bin.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
You know, so
Yeah.
so sometimes you base an opinion or a fact based on, hey, this is what I've learned through my years of seeing these things or something like
Right.
it. And
Well, I think the best part about it, about what you're doing, whatever, if you want to call yourself a conspiracy guy or a guy who's into all these cuckoo conspiracy theories, I mean, look at it from the point that at least you're interested in. You're interested in it. You're fascinated by it,
Sure.
and you're looking into it, and you're curious to what it is. People just want to push it away, be like, I don't even want to think about that.
oh yeah,
Because that's labels me as a cuckoo bird.
And listen, I'll tell you, it kind of for me, it's like reading a good novel.
Yeah.
How did you get there? What made you think this? What gave you that ideology behind that? And listen, I'll even take it with religion. I find religion very interesting when you start looking at the belief factors of certain people or certain groups, and how strong their religion is, or their background, or what their beliefs are. And listen, it's a belief. It's not based on any fact. It's just a
Right.
belief process. So,
Right.
when you start looking at this, and the people who don't believe in it are, listen, I believe President Trump said that he doesn't care about it one way or the other. Just doesn't care. I find that hard to believe.
About religion?
About UFOs.
About UFOs.
About UFOs. He just didn't care about UFOs. It just wasn't important. Listen, there's some that say John F. Kennedy was killed because he was trying to expose UFOs and aliens, and that they weren't just going to let that kitty out of the bag.
Yeah.
So, again, if I look for enough information, I can actually find stories that support that theory. And there's a group of people out there, I'm sure, that would be absolutely willing to die over it. Oh, I know this is why Kennedy was killed.
Yeah, of course.
So, but what makes them think that way?